Hi everyone, I'm Bonnie Booley. Welcome to Internal Dialogue. This episode is titled, Does Love Really Live Here? And it was inspired by this time of COVID-19, where we are all locked at home, we're forced to be by ourselves. And one thing that's happening for a lot of us is that we are facing aspects of our lives that we usually put on the back burner, or things that we ignore about ourselves and our lives because we have distractions to run to, right? And now all those distractions have been taken away and we are facing ourselves. And one such aspect of our lives that we're all forced to face is relationships, specifically romantic relationships. Some of us are realizing how we have been saboteurs of our own relationships. Some of us are seeing how we are in need of companionship and we'd like to cultivate that in our lives more. And some of us are reevaluating the relationships that we already have and are deciding whether they serve us or whether we can improve them. And to help us do that, to unpack the skeletons and dust them off and face them, is Hakeem Anderson Lesolang, who is a hypnotherapist, a therapist, a life coach, a father, a poet, an author. He's just an incredible human being who is very knowledgeable and very helpful when it comes to us deciphering how we can become better at relationshiping. So let's give it a go. So you are a mixed bag of vocation.
Indeed.
And I can imagine that all these things that you are came together quite organically. I can't imagine that any of this was a bucket list check off or a box that was ticked off and it all came nicely packaged in one course that you could study at varsity. It sounds like this organically to you. And most of the time, people who embark on a journey like this to help raise consciousness and help humanity heal the darkest and most broken parts of them usually have had to go through quite an epiphany themselves and have had to go through to dig through their own trenches and go to dark places themselves. What brought out this desire for you to speak into such a difficult and vast area of expertise?
I think my one thing has always been an oath I took when I was 9, and it was an oath of expansion and self-education because and the oath was, before I even forget, because every time I start the story, I always go like far. And then I forget the point. The oath that I took was 1 heart at a time, and it was an oath I took and I made before God, and it was 1 heart at a time. If my presence doesn't remind people of your greatness and how vast you are and how vast they are in you. I was asking a lot of questions around spirituality. I was heading to my father. God bless Prabita. Like, God bless Prabita and Mrs. Dike Lady Felicity Lesolang. Like, I
your
put
father
them through
and your
a lot
mother.
with this whole thing. That's my mom and dad.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was asking a lot of questions about spirituality and what things mean in the Bible, and then I went through this 3-year journey or 4-year journey of going through different religions and finding different meanings of who God is and who God is to those people who subscribe to those religions, until I found Islam. And the root word of the meaning of the word Islam means submission to God's will and only God's will. So I'm submitting my will, the free will that he gave me, to his will, right? And I will serve with my free will through his will. Like, whatever it is I do will be done to honor God, will be done to help people return back to the God awareness or the godliness. And yeah, that's basic. That's the gist of it. That's the big defining moment in my life that I remember. And I remember making those promises to myself and sticking by them, and then losing my path, getting married and getting married off of a broken heart and breaking like a very good person's heart in the process, and just resolving to look at myself, my life, my blackness, and the way I treat black love better. Of course, it didn't happen automatically after that. There were a lot of messes and a lot of mistakes, and I've had to learn to refrain and restrain myself and say no to myself. Saying no to yourself is possibly one of the hardest things you will ever do in your life, but once you get used to it, the treasure you become, the magic you become, the abundance you become, the love you become. Once you say no to yourself, and you silence yourself. Once you you stop your body from becoming your brain, once you stop thinking with your penis and your vagina and your heart, and you think with your brain and let everything else that's supposed to serve its purpose serve its purpose, you will be amazing. I promise that.
You just touched on something that's triggering a question that I actually hadn't thought of asking, but it's the perfect time. People always say, "Oh, follow your heart," right? And I've always said, how trustworthy is my heart? Because a lot of the things that I learn are things that I need to discipline my mind into learning. The things that have really transformed my life are things that I've trained my mind to understand. So when people often say, in love, you must follow your heart, I've always found that to be there's a dissonance there for me, because I feel like my heart isn't as trustworthy, because it just somehow, it feels childish.
It is.
I don't feel like my heart wants to learn hard lessons. It wants to play. It wants to enjoy itself. It seeks pleasure. Should we follow our hearts in love?
Yes, but we need to first start with, what is the heart informed by? A heart magnifies, a heart doubles, a heart is a hall of mirrors, and the hall of mirrors operates with feelings and emotions. Emotions echo what your thoughts are saying, right? Emotions echo what your thoughts are saying, to a point where they become so loud that they overwhelm your thoughts if what they follow wasn't intended on. So if you didn't intend pure, good, great growth action onto the heart, if you didn't intend that thought onto the mind of the heart is going to magnify anything it picks up about this person, anything it picks up about this relationship, anything. And then it blinds you, because you've allowed the heart to run rampant, and you find yourself having gone with the flow. That's what the heart responds to. Go with the flow. We'll figure it out when we get there. Let's just not talk about this right now. We'll deal with it later, right? And then because you're like, then the heart does what the heart does, and the heart magnifies and amplifies. Even when things go wrong, the heart magnifies and amplifies. People just need to learn. I'm not saying don't follow your heart. Follow what the heart is informed by, and that's the mind. That's logic. That's reasoning. That's that's deducing. That's interrogating. That's figuring things out. Figuring things out. And I'm not saying be a control freak about everything. Make informed decisions. Make informed decisions that even when things don't work out the way you planned them, you at least took time to sit down and say, I am walking into this with a clear mind. I'm walking into this with a full heart, a clear mind, and open eyes. That's my motto every day in the morning. I write that on Twitter. Full heart, clear mind, open eyes. That's what you walk into every situation with, into every person's life with, and you decide for yourself. Because if you follow your heart, then you're going to be a victim. When things don't work out the way you wanted, then you're a victim, because you're like, I gave you my heart. Yes, but did you not see the red flags that were flying all over the damn place? Wow. Yeah.
So you refer to yourself as a Black love advocate. And in my research, I came across this quote, which I'm going to read. It says, Black love is scary because it means Black power. That means people are seeing their self-worth. They are demanding it. They want their time and energy to be compensated properly. And the source of all this is love.
Yes.
Why does Black love distinguish itself? Why don't any other groups or races prefix it with themselves when they refer to love? Why does Black love just garner so much attention, and it just feels like it's got a harder deal and it's got a tougher mountain to climb?
Yeah. The reason, okay, I'll go to the social reason. The social reason why Black love stands out the way that it does, and why it's so important for us to keep reiterating Black love and growing it and making it healthier and healthier, and bringing out more examples of what that is and how that runs and how that goes and how that grows as well, is because for the longest time we've been fed the image of love through other races' ways and means. Television, media, magazines, anything we thought about love from as long as we can remember, has been attached to a Hollywood script, and it's been attached to a white people love story. That's the only thing we've ever known. We've even modeled the way we go into relationships and marriage around scripts and Hollywood, around those cultures, around every single culture but our own, you know? And like, I'm not saying like Black people have a monolithic culture that they follow, but we have a culture. We create culture. We create culture. Unfortunately, a lot of the relationships that we have espoused to having have been influenced a lot by white dominant media culture. And so when we experience Black love and we start defining between Hakeem and Bonnie in a relationship, what our love is, the texture of our love, the way we handle issues, the history that our families have. And we are a combination of two families, possibly two tribes and two mindsets, way of working things out. And we combining that and bringing into you Zulu, Xhosa, and we making a family of our own. How is this family going to run with the best qualities that the Xhosa tribe has and the Zulu tribe has, the Tswana tribe has, and the Nguni tribe has? You know, how are we going to make our own quality? How are we going to bring the quality of this relationship out in a way that our children can learn from us, our community can learn from us how best to handle love in the context of Black people and Blackness and our ethnicity, you know, and everything that we know, and which is the reason I suggest that people really know like their parents outside of mom and dad. Like, who are you as a person? You know, who are you as a person? Where do you come from? I swear to God, when you do that and you start understanding your parents as individuals, just like you want to be understood as an individual in a relationship, just like you possibly want your children to understand you as an individual, you'll understand how much your parents have had to lose of themselves in order to make a family work. What kind of sacrifices they made politically, socially, what they've had to sacrifice, you know, from their past, from their individual past, to make that relationship work or to make that family stand the way that family is standing, whether it's a single parent home or a dual parent home. And you'll understand why, you know, your father wasn't as active as your TV dad was, as Uncle Phil was. You know, you'll understand why your mother got depressed for such a long time, and you fed into that pain. And you felt guilt as a child. If you understand them individually, you'll know where your childhood wounds are. You'll know where your child got hurt, where you decided to stand on your own 2 feet because this family that, you know, raised you 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, maybe 12, 15 years, feeding your ego, didn't prepare you for the world and what the world is going to tell you, what your friends in school are going to tell you you are, which you fed into and you couldn't identify with in the house. This is why we emphasize Black love and why we emphasize making healthy relationships and saying and advocating for love in Blackness. It's a pride thing.
So you're saying in all those elements that you have now just listed is where our love story is pieced together. How we will behave, how we will, what we will choose, the kind of partner we'll attract and want to stay with is forming our love story. So in order to heal our love story, we need to go back to the drawing board and look at all those facets of our lives and heal what's broken. Oh my gosh, that's like it's going to take me my whole life.
Which is why you're talking to me now. Which is why you're talking to me now. So what I do is broken down into 3 bits. So I deal with the past, whether it was traumatic or you felt neglected or you felt like you didn't belong. There's a time in your family when you're growing up where you feel like you don't belong. There's something that happens there. You're not understood. You're not being regarded. You're not heard. You're not valued even. There's something that happens to us where the illusion of we are all that matters to our parents. We all that matters to our sisters and our brothers. We the only thing that matters. That illusion is shaken. And then you decide, oh no, hell no, like I'll protect myself. I have to protect myself because I don't want to feel like this. And then you build a wall. But this is a wall built by a child. So you're not prepared. You're preparing for what's in the family. That's why you act like a brat sometimes. You talk back. You know, you get hit, and then you get disciplined. You get shouted at, and you're like, oh, why? I never get shouted at. I'm not the one that gets shouted at. Or your parents, your cousins come because, you know, your aunt is going through something with her husband, with your uncle, and your cousins come, and, you know, because your parents know your cousins suffered some trauma in their family, they almost like put your cousins, it looks like they put your cousins on a pedestal, and then you feel neglected. You feel less loved because, you know, something shifted in the family. It wasn't communicated to you the way, you know, you understood it at the time. So a child's reasoning is only based on the ego. There's no emotional intelligence there. But you grow up and you develop emotional intelligence, and then you're like, oh, that's not how I react to things. That's not how I talk to people. That's not how I show up in a relationship. Oh, maybe I should find my voice when something goes wrong and I see it go wrong, and I don't wait until things have piled out, right? And now you come to me and we talk about what's happened in your life, and if you can identify where the root of all of these things is. And once we go through talk therapy, then we can go into a regression. A regression is deep, is almost like deep meditation, but meditation, figure this is talk therapy, and meditation puts you here. Regression therapy puts you here. I put you here, and this is where you've told me where the doors are to go heal these places. You've told me where the places are where the impact was the most heartfelt, where it pains you the most. When you go into that deep meditative state, you don't relive the memories, you only review them. And in reviewing the memories, you can correct, you can forgive, you can heal, you can close chapters that are no longer serving you, and you can move on in peace. Even if you've lost a parent, if you've lost someone you love, if you got heartbroken and you waited for closure, and then you guys spoke after 4 years of that breakup, and you didn't get any closure. The closure that you were hoping for wasn't reached. In regression, in that deep meditative state, you're able to unburden and let go of all the luggage you've been carrying into your adulthood. And I promise you, I wish you and I had done like a mild regression, and I could show you, like, just going through this session with your heart at peace, what it feels like. I swear to God, you'd feel like you're floating. You'd feel like you're floating. And after that, after a regression therapy session, you're like, nothing can move you from your peace, because every single thing you decide on from that point onwards isn't based on the things that happened to you in the past. A lot of our fear is based on things that happened in the past. I don't want to love like my mom did. I don't want to love like my dad did. I fear if I show up like my father did, I'll ruin another family, like he ruined my family, or I'll be abused as my mother was abused, or my sisters were abused. Or we take on all of these people in our lives, stories, and we carry those things, and we carry those things into our loving relationships, into our romantic relationships, and we don't show up 100% because we're afraid. But after a regression therapy session, a progression therapy session, an immersion therapy session, you come out light and inspired to literally show up for your life, because you don't have that crutch and you don't need it anymore. All those things you were leaning on for you not to show up 100% are gone, and it feels like complete freedom. Absolute freedom. Yeah.
Wow. So you, in your book, 200 Truths About Love, you're very vocal about the pain that men have inflicted on women.
Yes.
Very graphic about it as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever met a man or heard a man speak so openly about it. What gave you that kind of courage?
Because we're messing up. we're messing up the only thing, the only treasure we have left in the world. We're messing up the only source of freedom and peace and love and completion we have in the world. And that's the Black woman. And I don't care who says what. I don't care who comes and I really don't care. Even if Black women go against that, and I don't care. I don't, because I know who continues us. I know who I come from. I know what I come from. I know that, and I pride myself with it. I pride myself with the love of a Black woman. And as many messes as I've made in life, and as many trips and tripping and falling and dropping the ball as I've made in my life, I still stand by what I believe in. I believe the black woman, like black women are the only people that are still standing up for black men in the entire world. No one else.
Wow.
There's no one else. There's no one else. In the history of all history, in the history of all history, in the history of all people oppressed, the black woman is the most oppressed, has been the most oppressed, and will continue to be the most oppressed if we do not address these issues and fix them as black men, among black men, with black men. Women are tired. Black women are tired. They tired. And in 200 Truths About Love, I was warning men. I'm like, if you're not going to be aware enough to change on your own, or listen to brothers that are warning you about changing and showing you a way to change, because it's not like we don't have examples. We have examples. We can access them. We can access the examples. There's literally little to no willingness to change because the system of patriarchy favors us over and above black women. And sometimes we don't even know that the system of patriarchy favors us over and above black women, because this is our norm. We've normalized underrating and suppressing and oppressing black women so much that we don't see anything wrong with our conduct.
Wow.
And that's the saddest place to be for a person, a human being. That is the saddest place to be, to know that you come from a black woman, you come from a long line of black women, and you don't see the treasure that you have. Every other race sees it. Every other race sees it. Every other race protects their women. They protect them. If one white woman, one Karen gets hurt or gets accosted,
yeah,
that whole neighborhood, that whole city, that whole town is going to go
Everybody
on a riot.
knows you can't touch a Karen. They know, right?
You can't.
That's why Karens are Karens, because they know that somebody's coming for them. Somebody's coming to them, no matter how wrong.
They are a protected people. And I'm talking every single race. Every single race. I grew up in a house that said, a woman, a nation. A woman, a nation. A woman is a nation. She's not one person. You continue. You come from continuance and still continue. You continue men, you continue lineage, you continue bloodlines, which goes back into me talking about black love the way I talk about black love, because women multiply us, women continue me, you know, and for me to know what I know and not be vocal about it, that's a weakness, you know. And just me writing a book in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, when you see a wrong thing, correct it with your hands. Correct it with action. Go into it and correct it with your hands. Correcting it with your words is the weakest of all faith. I wrote a book. That's the weakest that I can do. That's the weakest thing that I could do in correcting black men's action, correcting black women's action, correcting black people's actions against each other. That's the weakest thing that I could do. So think about the people that just talk on social media all day, and it's just talk all day. Meanwhile, black women are being kidnapped and trafficked on an hourly basis. On a minute-by-minute basis, there are cargo trucks leaving the country. There are cargo ships leaving the country with black women, with kidnapped black women. And we as black men aren't doing anything about it. We're not affected until my sister gets kidnapped, until my child gets kidnapped. Then I want the whole world to go on an uproar, when I've been quiet all along, and I will be quiet even if I know Hakeem's child got kidnapped. We are in the weakest state any race, any male species has ever been as black men, and we're not concerned about that. We're not concerned about that. Africa sits on the precipice of being wiped out, and the best thing we can do is go on social media and become Thumbex activists.
Yeah,
that's the best thing we can do.
I'm gonna get very vulnerable here in this interview and say that I found, as a black woman in South Africa, I have an armor that I put on when I step out my door. I don't respond to men. I don't speak to men in the streets. I have a very hard demeanor that I project towards them before they even say anything. I'm raising 2 black boys, and they experience this. They witness this. And I know that is not healthy in the least bit. I know thousands of women in South Africa who have an armor that they put on to go outside. What that does in turn, though, is it's not just an armor I put on. It's obviously there's something on the inside that's forming every time I put on that armor. And I'm sure every woman listening to this knows what I'm talking about. And it's that hardness. It's that hardness we saw in our mothers, in our grandmothers, in our neighbors, women in the street, that somehow it communicated to us that they needed it to survive. To all the women out there, including myself, who are saying, how do I stand guard and defend myself in the face of not being defended, but also remain soft enough and open enough to have a healthy relationship with a man and with my children? How do you address that? What would you say as a therapist to women asking you that question?
That saddens me, right? Entirely. Because I can give you advice I can give you spiritual advice, I can give you religious advice, I can give you brother to sister advice. But none of that advice, if a man is determined to be abrasive, if a man is determined to be abusive, if a man is determined to do what he wants to do at the time he wants to do it, he's going to do it. And I'm sorry. To every single woman listening to this, I'm sorry. And it hurts me to know that I am a representation of everything you have to protect yourself against, like completely. But God helps those who help themselves, right? Right? And that's the least that I can offer, instead of, arming the men, in my life and in your lives, in knowledge and in physical combat. And artillery to protect you and stand guard. But how many men are going to stand and do that on a day-to-day basis, hour-by-hour basis, and call themselves out, call their friends out, call, every other race out? How many black men are going to do that? I hope there's a lot of us that are going to do that. There's a lot of us that actually stand and, fight for black women and be willing to die for something. I was talking to a friend earlier on today, and I was like, black men aren't ready to die for anything. We're not ready to die for anything. We're not ready to lose our lives for something more important than our lives, because we put ourselves here. We don't have a cause. We don't even have a constitution as to what black manhood is. Among brothers, among black men, we do not have a constitution of what our agenda is in the world, in our communities even. And I feel it's time for black men to adopt a constitution, not a bro code, no, not a bro code, but a constitution that says if one of these 10 rules gets violated, the fabric of our community is completely gone. It fails, and we are not going to fail or let other people fail our constitution, just like every other race and community does. There's a constitution that people hold up. Going back to your question, what would I say as a therapist? Arm yourself, protect yourself. Take a class in martial arts, in physical combat. Take a class in the use of artillery. Take a class in self-defense. Arm yourself. That's the best that I can give you. And it saddens me that that's the best that I can give you. But emotionally, mentally, taking off that armor and that protective shield that you have to walk out with on a day-to-day basis, I'm available for strengthening that. I'm available for helping you unburden, even in the immersion sessions and like the regressions where you've suffered heavy abuses or even mild abuses, where you've suffered those and you don't want to live in defense mode when you step into romantic relationships, or anyway, even raising your children, when you don't want to step into those relationships and those people's lives with all of those negative voices speaking out loud in your mind. When you actually want to see and feel the texture of good love, I'm here for that. But over and above that, protect yourself, arm yourself, alert the people around you about your movements, And it's so sad that I have to warn you against black men. It's the saddest thing in the world. It's the saddest thing in the world that, like, a person I could trust, a man that I could trust openly in the world could secretly be abusive to a woman. That I could be saying these things and be abusive to women I'm in love with, or women that I take to be my partners. You know, the fact that we can't trust we can't trust each other because there's really no constitution, no, like, the moral fiber of black men, and what that is, what manhood is in blackness, is fractured.
Wow. For those who are willing to hear how to mend it, how do we repair this breach?
One heart at a time. One heart at a time. The beautiful thing about blackness and being black is that we are a people who adapt, and we grow, you know? So I think there must be a collective consciousness of black men and black women who are determined to make black communities safe and sound for every black girl, every young black boy, for every black woman. You know, there has to be leagues on leagues on leagues, and clubs and clubs and clubs that are protective of black men, of black women, and our children. There has to be in every single community, and that constitution is what's going to make those committees stand strong. You know, I grew up in an era where the police did their job, right, of protecting communities. They did their job. And then there was a security firm called Mapohama Tamah.
Yes,
well,
I've heard of that security firm. They were lit. They were hardcore. Are they still around? Is it still around?
As a man, as a black man, you did not touch a black woman. You did not mess around with a young black girl. You didn't even. I only started dating when I was in London in my 20s, because I grew up in a community and an era where Mapohama Tamaha would patrol every 15 minutes. And if they caught you on a street corner, I grew up in a dojo. So there's that discipline. There's that you have to be disciplined. You do not start a fight, you end it. You do not watch men. I guess that's why I'm the way that I am. You do not watch men accost a black girl or a black woman and just sit idle. Rather come home. My father is a sensei, was a sensei. I'd rather come home with scars and bruises and cuts after I've defended a woman and walked her home, rather or be shot, lose my life, or protect myself and not lose my life. Honestly, that's what martial arts is all about. Like, you protect, it's self-defense, right? If you don't start none, but don't start none, won't be none, you know.
Yeah, and don't die.
You just don't die. Just don't die. You have to protect the black woman. And I grew up in that kind of community, even in the townships. I grew up in a village, and even in the townships, because there were dojos and Mapohama Tamaha were there, and the police were there, the community and black women were protected. And those systems got eroded as time passed. I think late 90s, early 2000s, those systems were slowly getting eroded. And we lost a lot in terms of the fabric in black communities, the fabric of protection in black communities. And I've been saying fabric a lot. What's happening today? I question my words. So where does this come from? Where does this word come from? But yes, that's I believe we have to institute a constitution for black men to abide by, for black men and black boys to abide by, and make it lucrative for them to abide by those laws. You know, I think there's an underlying depression by a lot of black men that goes unaddressed and unspoken of. It goes unspoken of. A lot of black men are disenfranchised because of employment. Because what black man do you know hasn't attached his worth to how much he's got in his bank?
Wow.
Music culture, urban music culture says a black man must have money to run game or to have anything. You know, black culture, black African culture says a black man must provide, protect. And the only way you can provide and protect is by having money, and there's no employment. And I'm not saying that's the reason for people to have shoddy character. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there are elements that add up to the reasons why black men are the way they are. You know, fatherlessness, the reason why fathers don't raise their children, don't stick around and raise their children. The reasons why there's so much arrogance, and what's behind the arrogance, what pain lies behind the arrogance, what are people protecting themselves from in those states of arrogance? What are people running away from when they go quiet in a relationship or they ghost you? You know, what's happened? We don't ask that. We only talk about the fall of the black man and never the root causes of why a black man is constantly falling. You know, which is what I'm addressing in my book for 2021, The Psychology of Black Men. It's called Refinement. It's like podcasts that I'm running right now are called Refinement, every Friday on Instagram at 12. So we have to, if we really want equality and equity, if we really want protected communities, if we really want healthy black communities, healthy black men and black women, healthy black love, you really need to know your people. You have to know your people. You have to know where it started, how it started, and because when you go to the origin, the now has all the solutions. When you go to the origin of something, you'll understand what the build-up was and how everything accumulated to the state where it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's why when you step into a relationship, I don't believe in umjolo, right? And I know, like, black love advocate who doesn't believe in
you
umjolo.
believe in, so umjolo, the opposite of that would be what? Courtship.
Courtship, yeah. I believe in courtship. I believe in courtship. Immediately as I express my interest in you, we're going to have the conversations, but we have to have honest and true conversations. You know, like, I might want 6 kids and you might want no kids whatsoever. I might want to go live in a farm and you might want to live in the city and travel the world. I might want to, you know, start a business, leave my 9-to-5 job in 6 months' time and start a business of my own, you know, and you were in love with a person prior who did the same thing, and money was the reason you guys broke up, not because you didn't love the person, but they just couldn't, you know, show up the way that a partner is supposed to show up in a relationship money-wise. You know, everything has to be put on the table in courtship, and if we're really serious, after it doesn't take, you know, courtship doesn't take long to determine whether a partner is good for you without sampling skin, without sampling energy, without sampling the person's money, without sampling anything. It really doesn't take that long. And I'm speaking from experiences, living, breathing, healthy marriage experiences. You know, like, what's the reason why you and I are talking? Are we talking because we want to get married? Are we talking because we just want to hit skins? Because if we just want to have sex, then let that be said from the gate. Let it be known, this is my character. If I want 1 wife, 2 wives, 3 wives, so I don't go around cheating. If I want a polygamous marriage, because I don't want to go around cheating. Or if I want an open marriage. How about we talk about those things before everything? But you can't talk about those things if you're still making decisions based on fears from the things you've experienced in the past.
You also can't you can't talk about those decisions until you face them yourself, even in your own quiet place. This is who I am. This is what I desire, and even just scrutinize those desires. Okay, so Hakeem, we're going to end this conversation now, and next week we're going to carry on with part 2 of this conversation. And
thank you so much.
For next week's episode, I want us to delve into particular issues within relationships that are buzzwords, like codependency, like narcissism, like ghosting. Why do people ghost? Can I go back to an ex? Stuff like that, right? Nitty-gritty.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.